Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of CONECTOD. First of all, I want to say hi to my co-host, Thomas. Hello, Thomas. How are you?
Hello. How's everybody?
So today, we have a very special guest. She is Polish, but actually lives in Paris. She's a student in psychology, a cartomancer, and a beauty influencer, and so much more, you guys, that when you discover her, you're going to be in love. We're going to leave her social media in the description box down here so you can contact our dear friend Domino. So Domino, hello, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this project. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for accepting. And, you know, guys, when we started talking about doing this interview, we wanted to present something that had to do with the subconscious mind. And then elaborating with Domino, we came to the conclusion that it was so much better to allow the ideas to flow instead of being very technical or whatsoever. And she sent us a beautiful bio that was actually the inspiration for this interview, which we're naming the layers of the mind. Okay, so I want to start by saying thank you for sending us this bio, which is such a piece of poetry that is beautiful. And I'm going to read it for the audience, and then we're going to start discussing from there, because I think it's very interesting, very profound and deep. And also it touches the very core of who we are, all right, and who you are. So it goes like this. It says, life keeps opening new doors of perception to me, keeps presenting me different ways of interacting with the world, and also different ways of being myself part of this world. I am constantly on the move. I do not expect to fully settle down at any point of my life, really. I have a very curious mind, and I particularly enjoy approaching subjects that are taboo and shedding light on darker parts of our psyche and of our own very nature. What has always driven me are self-awareness and self-knowledge, because I believe that is how we unravel the mystery behind our gift to the world, to the collective, while cultivating our unique way of being. Wow. I loved it.
Thank you.
So let's start dissecting this, because it's very interesting how you talk here about yourself, and also it sheds light on how your mind works, right? So my first question to you is, what are the layers of the mind to you?
The concept of the layers of the mind is at the very core of psychoanalytic theory. As I guess most of us are familiar with Freudian theory about the levels of the consciousness, the three levels, the pre-conscious, the unconscious, and the conscious. And these three levels correspond and overlap with the ideas of the id, the ego, and the superego. So all three of them together, working together, create our reality. I don't think that it will be necessary to go much into detail into this concept, because we're all pretty much familiar with it. So I think it's a good starting point to our discussion.
And you know, this takes me to a question that has to do with the perception, because we have the theory on one side, and then we have perception actually of ourselves and of our own mind. And I guess Thomas, when we were talking, he elaborated a question in regards to that. Thomas?
Oh, yes, Domino, thank you. Lots of people are watching, and probably they want to know your opinion, what you have to say. And here's a very common subject. We humans, we can be considered maybe structure of mass, life, movement, energy, and more than all, we are mostly unknown to ourselves. We might heard simplistically that we are what we think we are, what others think we are, and also what we would like to be. What could you tell us about this, Domino?
Thank you for your question. Very, very interesting subject. First of all, I think that at one moment we think that we are something, and the next moment we're already something else. So in regards to what you said, that we are what we think we are, and we are first what we might be becoming or where we want to become. I think that this is connected with the idea of us being works of arts in constant process of creation. The force being locked into a pattern and then being again broken again and again and again. And then there is how others see us and how this reflects the reality. I think that each person we encounter, that everything that comes into our life is part of ourselves, and the key to knowing ourselves and understanding ourselves is in basically recognizing ourselves in others and acknowledging those parts of ourselves in others. I'm not sure if it answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes.
So basically, what the role that perception plays there is that just as we are in continuous work in ourselves and changing constantly, our perception also changes.
Yes, completely, constantly changes, and I believe that it's also influenced from it's influenced from within. It depends, and it reminds me of a book, actually. It's a book written in the 17th century by a Spanish nun and a mystic, Teresa von Avila. The title of the book is The Fortress of the Soul, where we have this beautiful image of soul presented as 7 houses, and the journey consisting of going through each house until we reach the 7th house, which is like the 7th sense or higher perception, our sanctuary. And we can also understand it as basically intuition and perception, higher perception being intuitive understanding of the world. So our perception depends on, let's say, from which house we are looking outside. It might be the sanctuary, but it might be a different house that is not that sacred, I would say, or intuitive. It might be a different level of perception. Yeah.
So this journey, which sounds amazing, I know the book, and it's amazing, and this perception is so very much influenced by our own intuition, something that it's not only influenced by our beliefs and the things that we have learned and experienced through life, but also by our intuition. Okay, so maybe getting to that deep understanding of our perception is actually getting a deep understanding of the nature of who we are at every single moment of our lives. It's this constant journey, and sometimes we might go back to a different house, as you said it, and then we go back to our own nature, perception, and internal and natural intuition, which is basically our nature and the connection with our own soul.
Yes, beautifully said. I totally agree with what you said. Also, the topic of the house is particularly interesting because it symbolizes our psyche. And myself, I many times dreamt about houses, and those dreams always were a source of immense insight into myself. So I really encourage always people to write down their dreams, because with the time patterns emerge, and it really provides true treasures and helps us understand ourselves and how to navigate through world. So it's very it's a very interesting topic, the houses.
I want to go later on a couple of minutes into what symbols, archetypes, and the work that you do, particularly as a cartomancer, influence you
Yes.
and others. But first, just kind of like giving a closure to this first topic, I want to know what this intuition, this perception, this different layers of the mind that we have been talking about, help you or help people interact with the world, with others in a meaningful way. Because sometimes people just interact because of the sake of interacting, but how do you interact in a meaningful way? What's your opinion in regards to that? I know it's a big question.
We have only big questions today.
Yes, that's the nice thing.
yes, I agree. Interacting in a meaningful way with the outside world, I think the most important thing and the key is to connect with the sparkle within ourselves, to understand first what lights us up, what we are truly passionate about, what our soul calls us to explore. And then once we explore these things, once we work with it, we can then learn to share it with others and work passionately and authentically by just showing up as we are, and then basically attracting our tribe and doing something together.
Since you mentioned authenticity, there's also another line in your bio. I'm looking here. I'm sorry you guys don't see, but I do actually have my iPad here. And I was thinking about authenticity. Authenticity means that there's many aspects of us that are not always beautiful, wonderful, and filled with light, right? So here we go a little bit into, again, psychology theory about the darker side of us. And you mentioned taboo, okay? And you mentioned exploring accessing the darker parts of the psyche.
Yes.
Yes. What is taboo, and what does accessing the darker parts of the psyche gift us as human beings?
Well, in my opinion, it allows us to break free, more importantly, to break free from whatever holds us back, from whatever constitutes the thought police we create ourselves to remain safe, because certain ideas seem very dangerous to our psyche, and because they might simply bring about the chaos, opening certain doors or exploring certain facets of ourselves seems incredibly dangerous for all of us, I guess. It's a journey of the soul.
Sometimes it's quite a dark journey, but it's
Yes.
very necessary to get there. And Thomas was also asking, before we started recording something very interesting which had to do with conversation, the things we don't want to talk about, which I think is also very much related to taboo, because we know we're all from different cultures. What is taboo for someone in a certain part of the world might not be a taboo somewhere else, but still subjects need to be communicated. We need to speak about things. So Thomas, what was your question in regards to that?
Yes, as you are saying, some people are more maybe sociable, or they love talking about anything, no matter what they talk about. Others are maybe they don't talk about many things, and I wonder why is that so? Are these things that not discussed because maybe there are fears, maybe some experiences, some discomfort, intimacy. What do you think about this, Domino?
Well, definitely, if a person refuses to approach certain subject, especially if it seems like this subject is really triggering a strong reaction, that shows that there is something at the root of the subject, and most of the time it is a painful experience. It might be related with shame, with fear, with even sin, for example, but mostly is something very intense and meaningful. There's always something behind that. And other people that are very open-minded either explore those topics through experience or through asking themselves those uncomfortable questions, or they're not fully aware what they're talking about, and then they just touch on the surface of the subject without knowing what they're talking about, and without being respectful to others that might have had difficult experience in regards to those things. So I think it's a very delicate subject. We cannot force anyone to discuss a certain topic, and it has to come from the person, but we can sort of guide them to start to ask those questions themselves and come with the answers, or at least try to explore without hiding from it.
So this is very interesting because it makes me think about self-awareness, knowledge of who we are, introspection, what you're saying, right?
Yes.
In order to know what are the things that I am capable at this moment to discuss or not, to experience or not, that might change in the future. Okay. And it's also linked to the idea that whatever belief system I have, or whatever feelings and emotions I'm experiencing, they also have to do with my own nature and perception. So as we can see, every single subject is related to the other. So what are the tools in regards to this? What are the tools that can help people? Because you mentioned dreams, for example, right?
Yes.
So to access all of this hidden information that is in some part of our mind that we can actually use afterwards to help us move forward in life. So I'm not going to be saying, how can we do to make subconscious become conscious? Because that's a huge topic. I'm not a professional in that area. I have no idea, but I do know, and I have experienced that there are certain things in our mind that we perceive, we know they are there, and we use certain tools to allow them to surface, and then they become of use to our lives. So what can you tell us about that? And also, what do archetypes play, what role they play in your life and in the activity that you do as a cartomancer? Can you link those two subjects together?
Yes, absolutely. I really like the question. It's also connected with the previous question about the darker parts of the psyche, right? So basically, it's good to start with asking ourselves certain questions, like, and these are uncomfortable questions. One of these questions is like, what do I try to repress? What is hidden in me? And the way to find out is, one of the techniques is to observe what kind of behavior triggers us, what characteristics in others, or what makes us angry, for example, what makes us even violent sometimes, and like pisses us off, things that other people said, for example, and ask ourselves question, why does it trigger me? And then because most of the time this is a projection of a part of ourselves that we have a very complicated relationship with, and then we explore this part of ourselves that's like a person within us. Actually, we can explore it from different sides. We can even try to connect it with the earlier stage of our life, for example, and look for certain similarities, and then try to find if we went through similar circumstances in our childhood, for example, and how did we deal with this situation. These are parts that are not easily accessible, but it's a process. And there is an oracle deck that I really like to work with, that is focused on the work of remembrance. And it's very interesting, the word remember, if we split it out, remember, like members, different members, putting them sort of together. So this deck is called Symbolon, and it presents, each card presents a different persona from our interior self. And the work with this deck consists on basically naming mostly it's related with the fear. So naming our fear, naming our shadow, getting to know it, and acknowledging it. Try to understand what's behind.
And I think that every single action that pushes us forward has to be based in understanding our fears. Because fear is the primordial emotion that keeps us alive. We have two options, fight or flight. But if you don't understand that fear, then your action might be erratic. So using this oracle, which in a way, I understand it presents different types of archetypes of a person,
archetypes
of the life they are. You can situate the person in the moment and see what different paths, first of all, what the fear is, what has to be overcome, and then which path the person might choose, right?
Yes, totally. The subject of the fear also reminds me of a typology that we're both familiar with, Enneagram, because each of the Ennea types is linked to the fear, each person. That fear sort of acts as a driving force. So the more we are aware of it, the more consciously we navigate through life. If we're not aware of it, we might behave and use certain mechanisms that are not always helping us evolve. Actually, sometimes they were mechanisms that we developed that were helpful in earlier stages, but not necessarily, they don't help us evolve. They make us stuck into the same pattern and make us repeat the same cycles, the same encounters, the same problems that revolve constantly in our lives. So it's very important to bring those fears into our conscious mind, like you said.
So you could
break those patterns.
Breaking the cycles, that right? Because when we look at the Enneagram, we can actually situate the person in the Enneagram type and then look back through certain patterns, and we can reach the very early stages of development in that person's life.
Yes.
So when you put together these both tools, Enneagram and Symbolon together, you have like a huge map of understanding of where the decisions come from, right?
Yes, totally. Yes.
And I also know that eventually you are going to write a book in regards to Symbolon.
We're putting this out into the universe now. Yes,
totally.
I would love to, absolutely. I just started recently to really work with this deck on a much more deeper level than before, because I've constantly clicked with these cards, but I decided to really go deep within and explore different ways of working with it. It's an amazing tool.
I think that every single tool that we find in life that allows us to help others should be used, right? And this brings me to the closure of your bio paragraph, asking the last question before asking Thomas if he has some other question, which is, why is self-knowledge and self-awareness important, and how we cultivate them?
Self-awareness and self-knowledge are very important and help us evolve as human beings. Otherwise, we're just repeating the same cycle, like what we spoke about. And how to cultivate them, by keeping our mind as open as possible, by being brave, basically, by accepting ourselves completely, and just whatever is leaking from within, take it and just look at it and try to communicate with it, not bury it or pretend that it's not there.
You know why I asked you this again? Because I wanted to introduce the next topic, which is that you wrote something very, very beautiful, but we want for you to share with us. And it has a lot of work put into it that has to do with self-awareness and self-knowledge. It's very personal, and it has to do with trying to find a way to understand who am I as a human being, right? So before you read that is why I mentioned again self-knowledge and self-awareness. So before I give you the time to read this for us, which we're also gonna post in the description box, because it's such a beautiful piece of writing, and we want to share it with others that it might help. I want to know if Thomas has another question in this last 10 minutes that we have.
Oh, yes, please. Before we finish this with Domino, I want to say something. We sometimes we need to balance what we think and what we do and what we say, and also what others do, think and say. sometimes what other person tells us might be useful, and other times it might be maybe invasive or aggressive. So how can we be ourselves in the environment with other people, and feel good about ourselves, and also taking into account what others have to say, but maybe that's useful, and the rest we just ignore.
I think, thank you for your question, Thomas. I think that it's everything is connected to what we said earlier. It is very important to be anchored within ourselves, facing those situations where someone's reaction to us being ourselves, as being authentic, might be hurtful. And this is again the subject of the triggers, because this is a testimony that the other person has something to work through. So being aware of that helps, for sure, helps with being more empathetic towards them. But there is another thing about being anchored within ourselves and being having access to ourselves, because the more we have access to ourselves, the more we are ourselves, the more we are strong in our in the foundation of our being. So nothing will shake us, because we know ourselves, and we are also open to others, and we have understanding of others' reactions, because if we know our soul on a deeper level, we know also others, and might have more might understand others with more ease, because we went through those things, we went through those triggers. So why this person is being so hurtful, why are they being so disrespectful towards me? And I guess it helps in those type of situations.
Thank you. That was a beautiful answer. So
thank you.
We're eager to listen to what you wrote,
yes.
Because what you just said is also linked to who I am. So
yes.
I know, we all know that we already discussed that we're going to be having a podcast in which we're going to go deep into all of these subjects, but just please read this for us.
Thank you.
We still have 5 minutes, so maybe you can give us a short explanation in regards to it, and then we can go into depth. Thank you.
All right. So the question is, can we really answer the question, who I am? This is the eternal question burning in the heart of each creative seeker. This is what drives her, meaning that the moment she assumes she is in possession of the truth, she gradually loses her questions and gives more and more arrogant answers, forcing her religion on others. If she is truly able to see within her own inner self, she will see that this search never ends. We are all works of art in constant process of creation, and all knowledge is only an intermediate step towards the truth. The true assignment consists in paving the way in order to find understanding, and more importantly, in order to ask questions, not to misuse answers as a resting point for the ego. That would mean ending the trip. The trip of a wanderer and creative seeker never ends. It is a lifetime journey.
Wow, I loved it. We should all pay attention to the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland, right? When he asks who
yes.
Right? So what can you tell us about that?
Actually, you are a person that made me really dive into this in this question years ago when we met. Really, so it's thanks to you that I found those answers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So what can you tell us about that passage in this last couple of minutes that we have, without giving too much away, because we're gonna have the podcast, which is gonna be amazing, I'm sure.
I'm sure about that. I can't wait.
Yes.
I think that the most important part of this, what I just said, is that we should never stop asking questions. We should never assume that we have all the answers, because once we assume this, we stop. We become rigid. Our thoughts become rigid, and there is no more space for growth.
Keep moving forward, as I always say.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we had an amazing time. As I've always told you, you're a brilliant woman. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Completely. And such a sweetheart. And I love you dearly. You know that you're my soul sister. All the way.
Yes, we are sisters all the way.
Yeah. So we want to thank you very, very much for your time. And I cannot wait for the podcast, really, because there's so much to talk about, really.
I'm really looking forward to that too, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you, both of you. It was a pleasure and a beautiful experience, and I hope that it will bring many questions and answers to people that will watch it in the future.
I'm sure about that. So thank you very much. Thomas, you want to close this?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Domino. We are so lucky to have you with us, and we are gonna have another one soon. So be ready, and thank you so much. I think everyone watching this is enjoying all what you have to say. So thank you again. Thank you very, very much, Domino.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.